This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. This week, I'm emotional, wishing I was at Burning Man, and apparently in an advice-giving mood. I'm talking Furious, the new Emmy Rossum thriller I could not stop watching, before answering 3 listener questions about outgrowing friendships, getting over an ex, and combining your life with your partner without losing yourself. And really the thread running through it all, it always comes back to connection. How we find it, how we grieve it, and how we keep ourselves inside it. Hi, it's me, Saskia, and this is Note to Self. Alrighty, girls and boys and women and whoever else is listening, all of the above, welcome back to Note to Self. I am in a mood. I gotta say, it was one of those weeks where I really struggled to sit down and record the pod, to prep it and sit down with it. So weird. So I have the IUD, so I don't always get my period, but I got my period for the first time kind of properly. It only lasts literally a few hours. It's very bizarre. But I got it for the first time and oh my God, I was so emotional. Not okay. It was kind of wild. And then I had crazy cramps and I feel like it was a struggle to get here. I got very existential. I was feeling really down. So it was definitely a very intense week, that's for sure. And I think I was kept coming back to these big questions that, I have been asking a lot on the podcast about where I want to live, what do I want to do in my life, where do I want the podcast to go, and all these things. And I think some weeks it's just really hard to keep putting yourself out there. And the podcast is slowly growing. So I thank you to everyone who is always listening every week. But there are some weeks where you question why you're doing it. And I think the one thing that I keep coming back to is that it brings me so much joy. And I've been listening to a lot of stories of other creators and the journeys that they had where they're there were so many times I almost gave up and couldn't keep going. And it took years to get to where they are today. And I think that just keeps me going. Is that's probably why a lot of people do give up. And it was the same with acting. It's so easy just to step aside because it's hard when you are putting so much work in and you don't always see, as much engagement as you'd want to see. But then, you never know. Then there's some videos that are blowing up. So I think I just going to keep at it, keep getting it better. If you have any advice or topics or things you want me to cover, send it through. I'm always looking for inspiration. And I'm excited just to keep at it because sitting here, when I get here, I always feel very alive and always really, my heart is always really full afterwards. So yeah, that's been my week of a lot of ups and downs. We also went to, we have the next 4 weeks, 4 weekends in a row. We have shows. So we're raving out the end of our summer. So we had SG Lewis, at the Knockdown Center on Saturday, which is this venue in Brooklyn. It has this, I guess it's Queens. It has this big, or is it Ridgewood? I don't know. It's far out. It has there's multiple venues, but this was a day party. So it was all outside in what's called the Ruins. And it's this kind of older area of this venue that they have kept. And it kind of looks like ruins when you're there, an old building. And then a train tracks are behind it. So trains will come through. It was such a fun set. Albeit I did have period pain and had to leave early because I had such bad cramps. But one of my all-time fave songs, You Used to Hold Me by Calvin Harris. He played that. And what was so cool is he just played the whole song. He remixed it a little bit, but he just played it through. And the last time I saw that song in a live setting was Calvin Harris in 2010. It was my first big music festival in Australia called Splendor in the Grass. And he had just released the album that it was on. I think the album was Ready for the Weekend. That was it. Ugh, prime Calvin Harris. He's never been better than that, gotta say. Sorry, but Ready for the Weekend is hands down still one of my all-time favorite albums. And Calvin, please go back to that. Like, where did you go, man? Anyways, we saw him perform that, and I still remember that show. And it was, my first big music festival. And I felt like when this song came on, I was 18 again, jumping up and down, going crazy. It was so fun. I lost it. So really loved the SG Lewis set. It was very fun. And I loved dancing outside at the Knockdown Center. But speaking of dancing, feeling a little down because this time last year I was in LA prepping for my first Burning Man. And I had said to myself, I'm going to go back. I said I was going to go back this year. It was going to happen. I was planning it. And I guess I got engaged. I love how that's my reaction. I got engaged. Wow. And Jeffrey and I are heading over to Europe in like 2 weeks to go look at venues for our wedding. So that had to take the priority. So sad. It's like it's hurting my soul because we probably won't get to go next year either because our wedding will be around the same time. So I'm not going back to Burning Man until 2028. Kind of sounds like a nice year though in hindsight. I like that year, that number. And to be fair, I did read that the average age of burners these days are like late 30s and 40s. So your girl has lots of time to go again. I need to go again. I have to go again. I was reflecting on it finally at the show we were at the Knockdown Center. We met these guys who had also gone to Burning Man. I think one had gone a few times, the other one only twice. And he was saying he felt really like he wanted to go a second time because the first time he was just like so anxious. And I related to that so hard because that is part of the reason I really, really want to go again is I just had so much anxiety throughout the experience of the unknown. And I don't feel like I ever really got to fully embrace the experience and let go in the way that you can there because I was it's so overwhelming. It is like, it's so hard to even explain to people because there's nothing else like it. It's a whole other world. You feel transported out of this world. So it can be very overwhelming. And I remember even we'd be biking around and you'd see these art cars and you can jump on art cars and they take you around the playa. And I remember saying to Jeffrey, like, are we allowed to go on the art cars? It's like, you literally can do anything you want pretty much. Just like, don't be a dick. So, but I was too scared because I was like, well, what do we do with our bikes if we get on the art car? And the whole thing is you're meant to just let go and see where life takes you. And I'm really bad at that. And I really am trying to get better at that. But I feel like in a place like Burning Man, it really encourages you to do that. It's set up for you to let go and have these childlike adventures. There's just so much joy there. I remember my friend and I one night last year, we stumbled upon like a trampoline camp and we were just jumping around in trampolines like little kids. It was so fun. So there is such joy, and I really do think it encourages your inner child to come out. So I was really, really craving it. Oh, there's still a part of me that's like, maybe we'll just like go randomly. I don't think that's going to happen. It's wishful thinking, but my heart will be there, and I will be mourning not being there the next 2 weeks. Well, I mean, if the weather's bad, I will not be sad that I wasn't there, but I will go again. And I'm very excited to be leaving for Europe. We're planning the rest of our Europe trip. My mom is coming from Australia to meet us for part of it. Yay! I'm just so excited. It's going to be very heart-filling, and it'll be so wonderful to meet our wedding planner and we'll go and view all the venues that we really like and lock in a venue. And I think everything's going to start feeling a lot more real once we have all of that squared away. Anyways, diving into the podcast today, we'll start off with my pop culture pick of the week, which is the new Hulu TV show starring Emmy Rossum called Furious. I binged every episode of Furious in 2 days. I need more people to be watching this show. I could not stop. I am obsessed with it. I was eating it up. So the story follows Emmy Rossum, who plays Alice Black. And Alice Black is an FBI agent and former NYPD homicide detective, and she's investigating a series of murders, and she's tracking down who they know is a female serial killer who's responsible. And there's something about female serial killers that I just find so watchable and way less disturbing than a male serial killer. It reminds me of the show a few years ago with Sandra Oh, Killing Eve, which again, fantastic show. And I think it's probably because female serial killers are generally less common in media and then in our real world as well. So I always find the dynamic really interesting to watch in TV and film. And I think the scripts tend to be really rich and there's a lot of emotional world building, and I just find it really engaging. I'm also a huge Emmy Rossum fan, so she's the one that drew me to this show. I watched her in Shameless for many years and fell in love with her, and not to mention her all-time classic End of the World movie, The Day After Tomorrow. Brilliant. But she's so goddamn talented and just so watchable. I think the way she moves her face and her reactions are so emotive. She has so much expression, and it's just so beautiful to watch. She is an incredible actor. But really, the story is just super engaging. And there's this really interesting mirror effect happening between Emmy Rossum's character, Alice Black, and Lola Pettigrew, I think her name is, who's playing Catherine, who's the serial killer. And I love a TV show that plays with moral lines, and it makes you question what is your definition of good and what is bad. Because you're watching the show and you start to learn what Catherine went through, and you almost start to root for Catherine. You want Catherine to find her way out of this, and you want her to win. You want her to get these guys. And I think the show is just so amazing because of its female characters. You know, Alice Black, Catherine, and then there's Nora, who is the head of the sex crimes unit at the FBI, who Emmy Rossum is working for. So to me, these women are all connected because they've each had their voice silenced in a different way. And the title, Furious, says it all, because it's about the anger behind these women and the very different ways that they're releasing it. I see these female characters living in this man's world where they're all trying to regain their power. And I'm just so interested in how the story will end, because every episode I feel like is leaving on a cliffhanger in a way. So I will circle back once it's over. But for those who are not watching it, go and watch it. Join me on this journey. I am so hooked. And I 100% am going to talk about it on the podcast once the show is wrapped up. But more people need to watch it. It's fantastic. I really hope it gets some recognition in the awards season, especially Emmy. Whew, she's such a queen. Love her. But before I continue on the episode, quick little CTA. Again, if you're watching on YouTube and this is the kind of convo you want to send to your group chat, subscribe to Note to Self. And remember, when we hit our first 1,000 subscribers, I'm hosting our first meetup in New York. And you're going to be invited. We'll have espresso martinis, regular martinis. We have all the martinis. I'm a martini girl. What can I say? So very excited for that. So hit subscribe. Go subscribe to Note to Self. Or if you're on Spotify, follow the podcast. Thanks all. Now, it's been a while since I have done an Ask Me Anything, and I felt like it was time to circle back with some listener questions. And I've had 3 questions submitted from some of our Note to Self listeners, so I'll be diving in and covering those today. And remember, you can always submit your questions via email. You can find the email on the Instagram account. There's a little contact button, and it directly emails me, or you can DM me directly. And of course, all your questions will always be anonymous unless you want your name, but I just make them anonymous usually, unless people call that out. Anyways, my first question for the Ask Me Anything advice section. I'm currently in a period of my life where I just don't feel like I'm connecting with some of my friends. It feels like I'm outgrowing certain people and that a lot of my friendships lack depth. I'm wondering what advice you have in terms of making new friends as an adult and finding communities that are a little more spiritual. I've got to say, I have met some of the most spiritually aligned people at raves, which will be absolutely not a surprise to anyone who listens to this podcast. I just think you're more likely to find your people when you go somewhere where people are kind of already automatically looking for connection. And I've really seen an increase in sober day rave parties at coffee shops and things like that popping up more and more. And I think that would be such a great way to meet people. And there's clearly an audience for it, because I feel like the reason raves are becoming more and more prevalent is because people are craving connection. And there is something there when you're dancing synchronicity that automatically creates connection. But if raving's not your thing, I would also suggest one of the best ways to make friends as an adult, and the places that I've always made friends after living in many different cities, is hands down workout classes. I swear, so many of my new friends as an adult I have met at Pilates or going to like F45 style classes, like weight training classes, or joining a gym or raves. But I often find that when you go to studios, you tend to meet people because you often are getting paired up with someone for a workout, or, there's just more engagement in Pilates or yoga. Specifically studios, though, like I don't find this happens at gyms per se. And I think if you're looking for probably more spiritual communities, you probably want to steer more towards yoga classes, or maybe I know that there are like meditation classes that you can go to. There are different like women's groups as well that do like full moon ceremonies. So that would be definitely a very engaged spiritual community. And you usually can find those through your local yoga studio. Even sound baths would be a good one as well. And I always think probably a yoga studio is a good way to start, just because it kind of opens up to a lot of that realm. And even if there's spiritual practitioners or like tarot readers in your city that you follow, messaging them and being like, are you doing a retreat anytime soon, or an event in your city, and going to that, because I feel like those are definitely the best places. And of course, there's like Bumble, BFF, and all of that. And I don't hate on that. I've used it before when I was in a new city and needed to make friends. I just think the people I've connected with the most tend to be in scenarios where we automatically are going because we have that shared interest. But I do actually think, when I was reflecting on this question, that there's actually a bigger theme here. And I think it's safe to say that every single person can relate to changing dynamics with their friendships. And there was advice I have been given by many of my friends in their late 30s and 40s that have said to me that you'll start to notice your friendships changing, and some will drop away and your groups will become smaller the older you get. And to be totally honest, I used to be super resistant to hearing this. I felt like it would just not happen to me. I've always had quite a lot of friends, and I just didn't ever see that being a thing. But as I've gotten older, I have started to see it happen. And sometimes it's simply because life is just busier and we just have a lot more responsibilities. While other times it has been that we've grown apart in different ways, whether it's our values are less aligned or we're just in different stages of our lives. In my 20s, I felt like we all had so much more time to dedicate to our friendships, but you get to your 30s and your time increasingly starts to become more precious and you have less of it. Some of us have long-term partners, and maybe you're married or you're getting married, and maybe you have kids or you want to start a family. Your career's probably picked up quite a lot and you have more responsibilities. You might have aging parents that you need to support. And then on top of that, some of us are even picking up a side hustle and trying to like build a business, which takes up a lot of time as well. So you see how like it's really hard to maintain a large group of friends when you have all these other things that have filled up your time. So really, the older I get, the less interested I am in how often I see my friends. And I'm much more interested in how I feel after I leave them. I want to feel like my cup is full, and I want to feel like I'm having these deeper, meaningful conversations if the time is really limited. Because ultimately, it doesn't really matter how much time you spend with people, it's the quality of the time you spend with them. And what I find really beautiful with my closest friends is there is never an expectation or a pressure to be in touch all the time or to see each other all the time, because we understand that our lives are busy. And ultimately, that has not taken away from the friendship, because my truest and closest friends, if there's something wrong and I call them, they'll pick up the phone and they'll be there no matter where they are in the world. We're always there for each other, even if we haven't spoken months at a time. So I think for the listener that is going through, changing friendships and wanting to find new connections, I think finding the quality of connection is so smart that that's your priority. And I really hope you can find more spiritually aligned people is what you're asking for. And I have a sense that you'll meet them through the suggestions I gave. So let me know how you go. And just know that this is so normal and I'm going through it as well. So it's actually kind of empowering in a way, because you really start to value the people in your life that are really there for you, So good luck. Anyways, jumping on to question number 2, pivoting a bit. So a listener asked, I recently found out that my ex of 2 years is now back dating his ex from 6 years ago, and I can't help but feel super upset by it all. She's just so different from me, and it's made me question everything that we had, and I feel like now I'm having to get over him all over again. What advice do you have for someone who needs to get over their ex? The age-old question, how to get over your ex. I wish there was a simple fix. I wish there was a simple answer, but it's just so different for everyone. My friend got over a 10-year relationship faster than I got over my situationship. My friend, to be fair, was very checked out of her relationship, I think, for many years before it ended. So in a way, I think she had kind of pre-mourned the relationship. And the situationship I had many years ago ended in what felt like it was totally out of my control. So I felt like for many years, I mourned the potential of it rather than the actuality. And that was what was so heartbreaking to me. So I think when trying to get over your ex, the context of the breakup is always really helpful. I obviously don't have that, but if your relationship ended where you still feel like there's unresolved feelings, maybe the reason you're feeling upset with seeing your ex with someone else 2 years later after your breakup is that maybe you're still mourning the relationship. So before asking how to get over it, I would give yourself permission to feel what's still there. There might be something in these emotions that's worth examining and a message that's there for you. Something that might help is an exercise that I've done in therapy before, and it's inspired by somatic work. And it's really helped me when I've been struggling to get past emotions, when I've been really upset about an ex. And what you have to do is you sit down and you get yourself into a meditative state. You can do a body scan, whatever it is to get yourself into a meditation. You could do a 5-10 minute meditation. And then go think about the emotion that you've been feeling, this sadness over your ex, and find where it sits in your body. When you do this, try not to overthink it. Just go with the first thing that pops into your mind. Maybe it's your heart, maybe it's your stomach, your legs, whatever. Immediately, where is this emotion sitting? And the first thing that comes to you, go there. When you bring your attention to that place, notice what comes up first. It might be an image, a feeling, or maybe a question. And start to explore that deeper and ask yourself questions and kind of start to uncover what might be there. You can do this for however long you continue to get answers. Maybe it's only short and you can take yourself out of the meditative state. And I would write down immediately what you saw. And I feel like it can often help you decipher where the emotions are coming from with some of this. And then ultimately, if you have a therapist, take it to your therapist because they're the experts and they can help you break it down further. But I feel like it's a good way to try and discover what is beneath the physical emotion that you're feeling. And really, like somatic exercises, they help you understand what the emotion is trying to tell you. But I do understand that sometimes, after you understand what the emotion is telling you, you still need somewhere to put it all and somewhere to get it out of you, So I would actually suggest writing a letter. I wrote a letter to my ex every night for 2 weeks, and I never sent a single one. The first few nights I started writing, I was so emotional. I was crying. I was sobbing. It was so hard to write through it. But then I started to notice I felt less emotional as the days went on. And the more I did it, the more I started to feel the emotional ties start to soften. But you really have to let yourself be free in the writing. Just don't overthink it. Write down anything you want, anything from how you're feeling to anger to whatever you want to say, whatever is coming out of you, write it down. Don't sugarcoat it and don't hold yourself back. And you do that every night for 2 weeks. It can be the same letter. You could write a different letter, see what calls to you. And I think if you write the same letter, it's kind of helpful because you start to lose the emotion. But if there's new things that come to you as you're writing, add it in. I don't think it's a big deal, but you can write the same thing over and over again to soften it. And you will notice the emotions start to soften. And I actually think what's really nice is at the end of the 2 weeks, you can gather all the letters and you burn them. And I kind of created my own ceremony to really release the feelings and welcome in the new version of myself. And you could even time it to the full moon to tap into that energy too. And just remember, you're not writing the letters to reach them. You are writing them to release yourself. And I swear it works. It's so cathartic. But really, when I was reflecting on this listener question, there was another part that I kind of picked up on, and it was this comparison dilemma. So when you submitted this question, there was something that stood out to me. You said, I recently found out that my ex of 2 years is now back dating his ex from 6 years ago, and I can't help but feel super upset by it. She is just so different from me, and it's made me question everything we had. It's that last part that really made me wonder if this is more tied to comparison and maybe your ego. Because it seems to me part of what's hurting here is that this woman is really different from you. And maybe your ex's life looks really different with her. I think it's important to remember the person your ex dates after you does not rewrite your history with them. So I think ask yourself, are there parts of you when you were with your ex that if you were with someone else could be brought out by them? I think what I'm trying to get at is that we have many different parts of ourselves. And I think you should remind yourself there was a part of him that loved being with you. And there's another part of him that's coming out in this new relationship. And if anything, the fact that you're different, you could take as a comfort. Because imagine if he was dating a carbon copy of you, you'd be like, well, why didn't it work out with us? So I think it kind of shows you that, as humans, we have so many different nuances. And think about the people you've dated in your life. They're probably all very different. And whoever you're with next is probably going to be very different from your ex and bring out other sides of you as well. I think though, as women, we all do it and we always compare ourselves, and we live in a society that puts comparison at the forefront of everything. I do it all the time with my podcast, with my own life. I've done it with my partner, what I've thought about his exes and how different I am to them. And ultimately, I just keep coming back to who I am and the life that I have with my partner. And I just really try hard not to compare myself to other women, because ultimately I don't know who these people are. I don't know their struggles. I don't know what they're going through. And the only thing I can control is how I show up in this world. So I know it's really hard, but I feel like pulling yourself away from looking at your ex's new partner and stop comparing yourself to her is the best way forward. And I assume you're probably doing this, because I would do this, going to her Instagram account and stalking like crazy, and then also going to his. Stop. Block both of them and or mute them or whatever so you can't see them, and give yourself a social media detox from it, whether it's a few weeks or a month, whatever you need, and just remind yourself that the strength that you have and who you are as a person, you can't compare that. And there was a part of you that your ex loved, and there's a part of him that he loves with this new person. And that's okay, because we have many different parts. And there's not a single person that can bring out everything in us or fulfill everything in us. So I feel like what he has with her should never negate what you had together. I really hope this is helpful, because I think that's such a tough one, and we've all done it, where we compare ourselves to this other person. And I think you just have to be kind to yourself, because you really are experiencing a universal feeling. and you will get through it. You always do, albeit it feels like it's all fresh again. If anything, this is probably a good thing because maybe energetically this has been blocking you. So now it's showing you that, oh, wow, there's something else here that I didn't know. Clear it, and who knows what will come in the future for you. So good luck. Good luck is apparently my piece of advice for everyone's questions this week. Now, our last question of the day. Pivoting, a listener sent in, as someone who's just been engaged, me, what advice do you have for meshing your life with a partner? I feel so scared by the idea of combining my life with someone else's. I have one thing to say. The right relationship should feel like an addition to your life, not a surrender of it. When I first started dating Jeffrey, he was the first person I had been with where I really felt like I could be myself. I was unapologetically myself. I could set boundaries. I could prioritize my life. I could really live the life that I had created. And he was just a beautiful addition to that. And it never felt like I was compromising anything. However, because I had been single for so long, I did struggle with factoring someone else in. So me not compromising was probably an issue. I would plan stuff without ever running it by him and just expect him to show up, which to Jeffrey's credit, he always did. But what eventually came out is he started to feel like he was a bit disregarded. And I had to learn to make room for us and begin creating an ours. So, you're probably someone who's pretty independent if this is a question you're asking yourself. And I'd say it was a journey for me. I was lucky to be with someone who gave me a lot of space. And I think that is a really important thing. Like the right relationship should not feel like you have space. That should not feel like you don't have space to be yourself. And I really didn't feel like I had to give up my independence. But in the same vein, I had to learn, as our therapist said to us, is I had to really bring Jeffrey on the journey. I am the organizer in our relationship. That is who I am. That is my strength. And I had to learn to, speak to him about the things I wanted to do and make him feel included. And that really helped us start to mesh our lives together without me feeling like I was giving up my own, freedom. And I also think there are tangible things that happen in a relationship that helps with combining your lives, like moving in together. Things started to become much more real for Jeffrey and I when we moved in together. We started to buy pieces of furniture that were ours together, and we really started to build a home and define what we wanted our home to look like together. There's also friendship groups and family we started to combine. Many of my friends are now Jeffrey's friends and vice versa. And, Jeffrey's super close with my cousin who lives in New York, and he treats my younger sister like one of his sisters. We spend a lot of time with our families, visiting his sisters and spending time with the kids, and Thanksgiving with my extended family in the US, and many trips to Australia to spend time with my parents. And all of that has really helped us with meshing our lives together in a way that actually feels really beautiful and soul opening and exciting. I think another way to also mesh your life is to make sure you're dedicating time to your partner, but also yourself. It's so easy to fall into the roommate trap, and Jeffrey and I do this all the time, but making sure you're dedicating time together, whether that's a weekly date night, going for a walk, going on a holiday, whatever it is, time that's outside your apartment, but together. And our therapist often uses the analogy where she tells us to water the relationship like a seedling, which is rich coming from me because I hate gardening. But I've always really loved that metaphor. You have to tend to a plant to help it grow. So tend to your relationship in the same way. And on the other side, it's ensuring you dedicate time to yourself. I think when you're single, you just have so much time for yourself. So to ensure that you still have your hobbies that are yours and not everything has to be done with your partner, and spending time with your friends separate as well. I have my girlfriends that, I have my own time with that bring me so much joy. My podcast, Jeffrey helps me with it, of course, but there's little things that are mine too. And just to remind yourself that you don't have to do everything together and that there are things that can just be yours. And I think the healthiest version of together still leaves room for two full people. I really think also a good way to define that is to write down, what does dedication mean to you and what does freedom mean to you? Our therapist got us to answer this question, and she says the most successful relationships that she has seen have equal amounts of freedom and dedication. So I think it's an extremely helpful exercise to set expectations for both of you on what either of you define as those buckets. And then once you know how you define them, you're able to bring those expectations into the relationship. But again, ultimately, meshing your life with someone is a journey and it will never be perfect. When we got engaged, we had done all these things and our lives are very together, but there was a new level of commitment that we both felt, which made some of our earlier patterns arise. I think there was a fear that we were really committing to each other. So when I say it can take time, that's what I mean by that. It's not a one fix to make you feel less scared about combining your life with someone. It can arise in so many different moments. And I think the best thing that you can do is dive in with the right person and be on that journey together. And know that there's moments where it's going to feel scary, because the engagement, albeit it was so wonderful, it was also really scary for both of us. And I feel like we've come out the other side in a really beautiful, connected, deepest way we've ever felt with each other. And it's so wonderful. But it was a journey. And if it's accessible, do couples therapy. I'll say it again. That's literally everything. It has helped build the foundation to our relationship. And I just couldn't recommend it more. And finally, just remember it's okay to be scared. It is scary combining your life with someone else. And letting yourself feel just so emotionally vulnerable is so scary. And in the same vein, it can also be so exciting and liberating. And it's so fun to feel this freedom to design your life with someone. I think there's a lot of excitement and creativity that goes into that. And what's really fun is you get to keep redefining that with your partner throughout your life, which is also a really beautiful thing. Just because you've made this definition now doesn't mean it has to last your whole relationship. That's one of the biggest misconceptions I think we have, is you constantly can redefine with your partner what you guys want your life to look like, and maybe find freedom in that, because it's less scary when you feel like it's not so final, if that makes sense. Anyways, those are the Ask Me Anything questions for this week. I always have so much fun doing these. I feel like it's really cool to hear other people's, problems and where they're at in their lives and how they're looking at things. And it really obviously helps me reflect on my own life. And I really hope you guys liked it. As always, send in questions. When I start to get a few, I'll do another one. I always like to do it when I have a few, not just one question. So hit me up and let me know what you think. But really, as we're wrapping up today, looking back on these questions, I kind of realized they're all asking the same type of thing, but in a different way. How do we stay connected to other people without losing ourselves? Friendships change as our lives become fuller. An ex can choose someone completely different, but it doesn't rewrite what existed between you. And a partner can become a part of your life without becoming your entire identity. I think the goal is not to protect ourselves so completely that nobody can affect us. Any and all of your relationships are going to change you. That's what makes them so important. And they're going to ask us to compromise, communicate, grieve, grow, and become more vulnerable in the process. But the right connections shouldn't require us to disappear. They should leave room for the person we already are and the person that we're still becoming. So really, my note to self this week is that connection should expand my life, not limit it. And I can let people in without abandoning the parts of my life that are mine. So I hope you all enjoyed the episode. And as always, I will see you next week. Bye.